18th, 2018. We're in the forum room, 5:30. Director Nero is joining us from his remote location. Dean, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear.
Great.
What's the question?
We're just acknowledging that you're here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, we'll do we have quite an agenda here tonight, so we get started. Roll call, please.
Valerie Howe. Here. Joyce Iverson. Here. John Linder.
Sure.
Dean Mero.
Here.
John Pettit.
Here.
Bonnie Pinson. Here.
Thank you. Next will be, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next will be Next, moving on to the adoption of the agenda, we have a couple of additions. Item 6D on the payables for June, 6F, board bills, and then G, a couple of personnel issues. And then item 7 in the old business, A, some proposed change to one of the policies. And 7B would be a discussion regarding the Old Elementary High School building in the city of Rushford. And item 8I would be a addition of a list of current vehicles as we are proposing to purchase another vehicle to replace one. Okay, so any questions, comments, or thoughts on the agenda? None for a motion to approve with the additions?
I'll make that motion.
Clemson, is there a second?
Iverson.
Second by Iverson. All those in favor of adoption of the agenda as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carries. Item 5, public comments are heard. Limited to 5 minutes per person. Address this tonight. Okay. Moving on to item 6, the consent agenda. We have minutes from the special meeting on June 28th, June 18th, regular monthly meetings minutes. 6C, donations in the amount of $17,214.31. June payables on the amended are hand payable wires and payroll liabilities in the amount of $351,442.97. July board bills in the amount of $802,109.02. And item G, we have first hire of Hannah Hoppy, junior class advisor, prom advisor. G2, leave of absence for Ron Anderson. And item 3, leave of absence for Keela Hoskins. And in addition, item 4, retirement of Carl Holger, custodian. And item 5, leave of absence extension for Tracy Smith.
The board knows Hannah Pappy is a new hire. She'll be a good grade teacher. And Tracy Smith took a leave of absence this spring and has asked to extend that. Tracy is our speech and language instructor.
Any questions, comments on the consent agenda? Not, for a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Mr. Howell, is there a second?
That's my second.
All in favor of the consent agenda as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
If I may, before we move on to all business, just take a moment to extend my personal thanks to Carl Holber, who approved his retirement this evening. Carl has served the district for 21 years, and so I'm very appreciative of all the things that he's done over the years for us. He's been very advantageous to have because of his willingness to do what's ever asked of him. So deeply indebted to Carl for his years of dedicated service to the district.
We have a letter of appreciation for
Certainly will draft one on behalf of the board.
yeah, the consent agenda is approved. Moving on to old business. The first is item A, approve the second reading and adopt the following policies. Number 520, student surveys. Number 523, policies incorporated by reference. And 3, number 525, violence prevention applicable to students and staff. And Joyce, I believe you proposed a suggested language to item number 520.
Yes, those language that we've been using for other policies, basically the same statement.
Thank you for catching that.
Anything anyone wishes to add, any discussion on old business? Item A. Now, I guess we look for a motion to approve item 7A.
I would make that motion.
Motion by Iverson, is there a second? All those in favor of 7A, signify by saying aye.
7A was just with Joyce's.
With the changes, correct? Thanks. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, no? Motion passes. Moving on to item 7B, trap shooting discussion. Mr. Lind, you wish to address us on that?
Yeah, I was asked to come tonight to discuss a couple things and be here to answer questions in regards to the trap shooting program.
Okay.
After last month's meeting was online and reported in the paper, there was maybe some discrepancies that Mr. Ayler and I met and visited about in regards to the loss that was discussed about the trap shooting team. There was.
Excuse me, Dean, can you hear okay?
I got it.
Okay, good.
There is a microphone, so we'll ask you to come and use the microphone. We'll use the technology we have available to us. Thank you.
So there was some things that were maybe, I guess I was a little disappointed about maybe having a conversation about that before we brought them up in front of the board. So I talked to Mr. Ayler and we met and there's some inventory that's left over from this season because of ordering things. There's obviously when you order targets, you order by one box, it's X amount of dollars. You order the whole pallet, it's cheaper and a better rate. To have zero inventory left over for the following year is a challenge at times because with road bans and things like that, the pallets that you handle, at times it gets to be a challenge to get them shipped. So when Mr. Ayler and I met, there was over $4,000 worth of ammunition and some targets that morning I had just got back into town, and I came and met with him. I didn't drive out to the range and count the targets, but the difference in $4,000 compared to what was discussed at the meeting is significant, and I guess to me that needed to be cleared up, so that's why I wanted to meet with Mr. Irwin. So, other than that, there's this ongoing argument whether it's high school league sanctioned or not. I know it's been brought in front of the board before on whether the coaches need to get paid and what should be funded and all that type of conversation that's been had. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but in the next breath, I don't know that everybody's on the same page, and at times it can be a little bit gray. What I revert back to is, and trying to explain it to people in layman's terms that you can relate to something else, is the Minnesota Clay Target Association collects the scores, figures the totals, breaks everything up. That's the regular season, okay? I kind of relate that to maybe a Three Rivers Conference, per se. Now, we're split into conferences, but for example, on the basketball team, the regular season games lead up to the subsection tournament. The subsection tournament goes to the section tournament and then on to the state tournament. In the trap shooting league, we have our regular season, and then the Clay Target League hosts a tournament where they invite everybody to Alexandria that we have gone to every year. It's a great event. The Minnesota State High School League takes the top 40 teams from that event to their Minnesota State High School League championship. They also take the top 100 kids of the regular season score averages to their state high school league championship. So if you're not in the Minnesota Clay Target regular season, you cannot qualify individually for the Minnesota State High School League tournament. If you don't go to the Alexandria shoot, you cannot qualify as a team to go to the Minnesota State High School League tournament. So basically, that's the regular season and the section tournament wrapped into the Clay Target League. And basically, they're the ones that are on the website. They calculate everything, they collect the scores, they figure the averages, and you have to go through that to get to the State High School League tournament. There's times it's been brought up that the Minnesota State High School League doesn't sanction it. That's not true. The Minnesota State High School League sanctions clay target shooting. It's listed on their website as an activity. If they didn't sanction it, it wouldn't be there. I guess there's some disagreement in that among myself and others in the room, and I don't know how we can look at it any different. It's on the website, they have an event, it's sanctioned. I don't know that it's fair to the kids to tell them, hey, we're gonna cover true team track expenses, but we're not gonna cover clay target shooting, and true team track isn't even on the Minnesota State High School League website. It's an addition. So that's the part I struggle with, and I'll be honest, I don't know if I'll change anybody's mind, but I feel I owe it to the kids to come here and have that conversation, because some of the options that we've talked about in the past, I don't think are fair to the kids of Rushford Peterson, and I don't think it follows the model of always our best. I don't think it includes everybody, and I think that's a disservice to a group of kids that frankly have been pushed out of other athletics because of their abilities, maybe some of the ways they were treated, and now they have something. And I think it's a great program. 33 kids is large numbers of schools in our area of our size. We have one of the largest trap shooting teams. So obviously I think there's interest. Obviously I think there's the kids want to do it, and I think the community, there's a group of people in the community that obviously support it. And, to be honest, I don't know that it was fair to be brought in front of the board without having a conversation with me first about, hey, we lost money. Because if you put together a net worth of the program based on what we got left over for supplies for next year, I don't know that it's that as big a loss, if any, as was brought up and discussed at the last board meeting. So I guess I'll open to any questions you have. Again, I felt it was necessary to come and have the conversation to clear up both what was printed in the paper at the last month, and I guess if anybody has any questions, I deal with it probably as much as anybody, so.
If I may, I'm gonna bring the board up to speed. In your packet is some information, and in all due respect to Mr. Lynn this evening, I thank him for the years of service and leadership of the program. But with all due respect, we have been consistent in what we've done the past 2 years, and we've been consistent with that until this year. And that is the part that was frustrating from my standpoint as well. As Mr. Lynn has expressed to you some frustrations on his part, it also frustrations on my part. When I say consistent, we have in the past have always provided our coaches an opportunity to go to Alexander, to the Minnesota State Play Target event. The students in the past have paid for that, and we have been consistent with that, and we paid for the coaches. So we've been consistent with that as well. As far as a reflection on the income and the expenses, even though Mr. Lynn has clearly indicated to you this evening that there's a carryover, and I don't debate that with him, but in fairness to the kids that participated this year, how are we supposed to assess a fair amount for those kids that used ammunition or play targets at the same time? So we don't have the option of having a 2-year cycle on our budgetary issue. So for me personally, in accounting practices, we have to be able to show those expenses for a given year. So as Mr. Lynn has indicated to you, he has some frustrations with it, and I have frustrations with it as well. And again, we have been trying to be consistent to what we've done in the past and going forward. Now, he's indicated to you this evening that he also thinks that there's justification for payment for coaches, and I can't disagree with him in that respect. I've taken the liberty to share with you our area schools, and that's in your packet. It's on page 28, and breaks down the number of schools that we surveyed, or the number of schools that responded to us, and the number of schools that paid. And right now, the average pay for a paid coach is $700. And we'll ask the board to be advised that one of the requirements for the trap shooting is you need a coach for every 10 participants.
Plus a range safety officer.
So we have, in addition to, as Mr. Lynn indicated to you, although again there's some discrepancies there about the number of participants this year, because according to the sheet that I was given, we had 28 and you referenced 33. So again, there's some discrepancies there, but in that event, you would need 3 coaches, plus someone to manage the range when they're out there shooting.
If you're over 30, you would need 4 coaches plus the range safety officer. It's 1 per 10. If you have 31, you need 4 rather than 3.
You're correct.
And I guess we go back to being consistent from year to year. I fully understand that, but I think we have talked in the past that the clay target shooting or trap shooting has evolved over the last number of years that we've been involved. Okay, you and I both can agree on that. So I don't know that staying with status quo and something that has evolved as much as it has. For example, this year was the first year of a national tournament. And we had 4 kids compete at the national level. One of them did extremely well, qualified on the qualifier day for the finals, and it was real exciting for those kids to be able to do that. Now, where that line is drawn in the sand, I don't know. The problem that I look at is all of the other activities have a set fee. There's a large group of activities, and I've asked for the numbers and I haven't received them. We've talked about it, that don't make money. Okay, I don't know that any of the activities at Rushford Peterson make money. And I don't know that that's what we're here for. Investing in these kids, to me, is more important than the bottom line. And I'm just gonna tell you, the phone calls I received after the paper came out after last month, there were parents and kids on the team that felt attacked because they were pinpointed and it was talked about at the board meeting, yet nothing's ever brought up about any of the other activities. I think it's really unfair to have a solution of telling the kids at the beginning of the year in track shooting, here's what the costs are gonna be, you're responsible for all of it. Unless you work in these things and fundraise enough, we'll start tallying it down, because the long and short of it is that's gonna turn kids away. They don't tell the football kids that, okay, at the beginning of the year, you're gonna fundraise, and we're gonna take officials, busing, certification of helmets, all the new equipment, care for the field, coach pay, all of that, and we're gonna start subtracting off of that if you fundraise and if you work in the concession stand and if you get donations, and you're gonna end up paying the maximum on down to it could be zero. I don't know that that's a fair thing to hold the kids hostage like that in one activity when there's many others that are losing money as well.
Keep in mind that has been and always, since it started, it has a club status. So
And that's why we're here to discuss it.
we treat it as a club, just please allow me to finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
We treat club statuses differently than we do for the organized sports. So a club status, let me use JO volleyball as an example. The students have the right to choose to participate in that.
Yep.
There is no dollars expended by the district. It is a club status organization.
Is JO volleyball listed on the Minnesota State High School League website? Do they have a tournament?
Not to my knowledge, they are not. But they
And
have,
that's why I'm here tonight, and that's why I asked to talk, is because to me, it's more like football than it is JO volleyball. And you might disagree with me.
I do.
It's listed on the website. We can't change that. It's there. They have a state high school league.
It's not
tournament.
state sanctioned, it's not Minnesota State High School League sanctioned.
We're gonna agree to disagree, but I think it was pertinent that the board needed to hear
I agree.
my side of it and the kids' side of it. So,
Well, and in reference to your statement is, a concern was expressed to the board. So whenever a concern comes to the board members, I respond to it. So the concern is that the amount of time that you as an individual and the other coaches committed to the program, there was a concern about how we address our expenses in there, and et cetera. So the response that I gave to the board did not reflect any of the coaches, did not reference any of the students. It gave a comparison of the expenses that we've experienced over the years, and there was an indication that we had an expense this year. Again, no references to coaches, no reference to sport, just information for the board to have. So please be careful on how you interpret the data that was shared with the board members.
Anybody else have any
The
questions?
information that was provided tonight, I think, I would like to make a motion that we fund the coaches needed for the program, and since it's listed on the Minnesota State High School League as an activity, that we treat it like any activity that's, whether it be football or volleyball, and I think the district should support that, and that's my motion.
Anybody have any comments? Want to second it? Do we have any more questions for Mr. Lynn?
It seems to me the board and the school have been supporting it. I guess I'm kind of confused. I'm trying to get to the heart of like what you're asking for, Mr. Lynn. So I understand you're upset that
I want
in
the
the
kids.
paper.
I want the kids to pay the user fee. We will continue to fundraise like we've done. I don't want the kids left in limbo, is what I'm asking for.
What do they currently pay a user fee?
This year they paid the user fee. The
How
balance
much
of the
that
user
is?
fee, $60,
Okay.
okay? But the problem is, when it comes time to go to Alexandria and pay for hotels, when it comes time to, who knows what the expenses are. The solution that Mr. Ayler and I talked about that he brought up, and I'm not for that at all, is figuring out the $250 whatever it is, and then the kids either pay that, or we start taking off. If they work in the concession stand, then we get X amount of dollars for the program.
But when
If
I,
we
when I look at
fund
the
it.
chart of all the other schools though, I mean, it doesn't look like we are just the only school that's
I
doing this. It
completely
looks like the
understand.
majority of them, have volunteer coaches, and also, I don't know if it was the majority, but quite a few of them also have the students pay if they choose to go to Alexandria. So,
And I
I
guess
mean,
my,
so it looks like we're actually in the majority, at least the way I'm looking at it, for how we're working with the club. So-
and my argument is this evolves. It's, when it first started, the Minnesota State High School League had nothing to do with it. At that point, club status makes sense.
So specifically, what you're asking for is to be paid as the coach, and also you want
Maybe,
funding
maybe it's-
readily available if they choose, if they go to the championship.
I feel that would,
Specifically, that's, okay.
I feel that would be consistent with other things that are listed on the State High School League website. The kids, when they go to the state basketball tournament, do they have to pay for their hotel rooms? No. When they go to, state baseball this year, did they pay for their hotel rooms? I don't think so.
It also looked like we had quite a few donors, which I thought was nice, you know, on your financial statement. That
Yeah.
So it isn't the kids coming up with the money for everything, I assume, because there were some pretty healthy donations
Yeah.
as well.
How much would a ranger, you'd be paying for a ranger?
A range safety officer.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's, I guess I'm open to what's fair. To be honest, it's been volunteer coaches and it's a chunk of time every week that gets donated and you know, with volunteers, you know as well as I do, after a certain point, they run out of gas. I got 2 kids at home, I've got other things as well that, you know, I enjoy the trap shooting, I enjoy giving the kids the opportunity. But it's a commitment, it is. And looking at some of the money that the district shells out for coach pay for the spring time, it's hard not to apply to be the assistant baseball or golf or whatever coach, track coach, and spend those hours and get compensated for it rather than totally volunteering. So I don't know what's fair. I don't. It was brought up $700 was the average. I don't know if that's better than zero, that's for sure. But it still doesn't come close to what some of the other activities assistant and head coaches are paid, so.
But like, you know, as we said, it's a club status, I mean, I don't think it's really fair to
And
compare
that's-
to like, to,
I think we're wrong in looking at it as a club status from my side of it, from the standpoint of what's on the State High School League website. It's whether anybody wants to disagree or not, they wouldn't list it on their website if it wasn't sanctioned.
Can I just clarify the State High School League's part of that? They do sanction the tournament that's in Prior Lake, which we had a student participate in. We paid for the hotel, we paid for the meals for that student to participate in that State High School League sponsored tournament. The Minnesota State High School League does not sanction per se, and they have no bylaws set up for for Clay Target as an activity. If you look under their bylaws, the 500 bylaws cover every other activity that is a State High School League recognized activity. However, they do have a link on there. If you click on Clay Target on the State High School League site, it refers back to the Minnesota Clay Target League's rules. So if you look at the Minnesota Clay Target League's rules, there's a gray area, I get it. I mean, you and I have talked round and round, it's gray. How can it be one but not the other? I get that. I know I've talked to the organizer of, or the head guy of the Minnesota Clay Target League too, when they started to get this affiliation with the State High School League. And does he see that as one step forward that's inevitably going to lead to the full-fledged activity status in the State High School League? And he shared that no, he doesn't foresee that happening. It's mutually beneficial. I mean, it would be great if we could, because then it clears up all this gray area stuff. But one reason it would not work very well is because in some places in the state, they can only shoot on Sundays. The State High School League had bylaws that said you cannot have an activity, practice, meeting, anything on a Sunday. So that would then make all these teams that can only get access to a gun range on a Sunday, not able to shoot. Now, we do it Wednesdays and Sundays. We could say everybody shoots Wednesdays. I mean, I get we can get around that. on the Clay Target League thing, under organizing team, it says the league, meaning the Minnesota Clay Target League, is not a sanctioned sport activity with a state high school league activity athletic or association. Most schools will set up the Clay Target team as a club or activity, just like other activities at the school. This means that the coaching staff is solely responsible for the management, coaching, administration, and monitoring management on behalf of the team. So it tries to take some of that liability off of the state high school league. They want to dip their toe in and say, hey, we're flying a flag here that we offer a state tournament in this, or a state championship, but we don't have any kind of obligation or liability throughout the season. It falls back on this group and then on a club type status. Then it goes on and says that nonprofit organization, because most teams are set up as an independent activity of the school, some teams establish a 501c3 nonprofit organization for the teams, take advantage of being tax exempt and their ability to accept contributions, donations, and are tax deductible to the donor, they fundraise, etc. But, so there's that affiliation with the state high school league. Yes, it is affiliated, but it's not like every other activity in the eyes of the state high school league at the league office when I've had the conversation with them. It's no, we don't treat Clay Target like every other activity. The postseason tournament, they do put their name with and sponsor that
And the only way to get to the postseason tournament is
by participating in the
the
regular
top
season.
100 in the regular season and the top 40 teams at Alexandria. So, to me, it's
You and I
it's
have
clear.
that, I know.
Maybe we should vote on, Dean made a motion on that.
Well,
We're spending an amazing amount of time on this, and we've got such a full agenda,
Well, one thing is like that, we have a budget cycle too, that this is kind of late in the season. You know, typically, you come to the board as part of a proposal with all of the budget outlined at one time, and at this point, we've already established the budget for this year. There may be ways to get around that, but, I don't know if that's, typically that has to be staffed before we would even get to this point. I mean, what budget is going to be and what you see is what's going to be needed for the whole year. That would be a thought I would have that might be an impediment to get it done tonight.
We can certainly put an outline for you that would kind of give you an indication as, help you in your decision-making process, so.
Do I see that comment?
I had a question for clarification. The JO volleyball, I thought that was under community ed, no? So it has club status,
Taylor is separate.
or is it a regular activity?
It definitely is not an activity of ours. It's an outside club, outside entity. Correct.
They use our facility.
So they have their own policies, their own participation fee, everything is done outside. They rent the building and they use it.
They have their own liability insurance, they pay the facility fee, and they follow all of that.
so they're really a club, a school club.
It's not a school-sponsored event. When it's, it's not a school-sponsored event.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? We have a motion made by Rick and Merrill. Anyone have a second to that? A second?
Could the motion be amended to study costs and, or?
Well, right now we have a motion. I guess, because we have to rule on this motion first. I don't hear a second. That motion would fail. Do you have a suggestion?
Well, Chuck made a suggestion, could you just follow through with that?
Okay. We'll take any motion to do that.
We can go ahead and work on, with Mr. Lynn's input, I'll be happy to put together a working budget for you to take a look at.
I'd like to have some input before that happens also. I've listened to this over and over since I've been on the board, and how it is a club status and the high school league, and this is all stuff that we've been through before. But every time I heard it, I kept thinking back to the root of this. This is a program that teaches students or people how to shoot flying birds. It's not a sport like basketball, football, and the rest. It's a cultural type thing. It's using guns. I have many guns at home. In fact, I'm not certified anymore, but I'm an advanced hunter, Ed, back when that first came in. So I am in favor of hunting 100%. I love my guns. But the school does not allow them. They don't allow them, I believe, within 1,000 feet. And every family, I think, has a responsibility to their own children to bring them in and bring them up for some appreciation for something as cultural as this hunting type activity. We've had it in town. It's been very, very successful for many years. Before this team was ever brought together, several 4-H clubs would use the trap range. The FFA would challenge other towns and have their own activities. Which gets me to my main problem is why the administration in the first place allowed this to be a paid activity. I think this all could have been avoided by leaving the guns and this type of education where it should be as a cultural thing within the community, within the families, and the sportsman's club. There's a great sportsman's club around here. The turkey boys around here do a great job. They donate. They put in a ton of time, even now, for this particular activity. And so I think it's a parental type thing is where it should start, and have that kind of club, as they do in JO. Well, I don't know if that's okay. Wrestling, the Grand Kid, a couple others have gone to national championships out on the East Coast and paid their own way. So I don't see that we need the argument, and in fact, I don't think we need to be a school sponsor of this type of activity. And 33 kids out of our 600, that's not a large majority of kids that are participating in it either. So on those things, I think there's some things that we should allow, we should not allow in a school-sponsored setting.
Okay?
Can I make one comment? Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah, we need to wrap it up here. Go ahead.
I'm just going to make the comment that clay target shooting is an Olympic sport, number one. Number two, Mr. Beaver, can you tell me how many kids were in baseball this year?
Approximately 30.
Okay. So, the same or a few more in clay target shooting?
Very comparable.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. Okay, moving on to old business 7C, we have quotes to approve the contract for the installation of sidewalk from the school to highway number 43. Yeah, I believe it's on page 30.
Yes, it is. So, there's a quote there from Weezer Brothers, and then Weezer Brothers, as indicated to you, they would not be responsible for the site preparation, so Generation X gave a quote, so the combination of the two, and then R&R Construction gave us a quote for the entire package, so those quotes are in front of you this evening.
When would they be able to start? Have they been given an indication?
Just that completion would be before the first day of school, which is September 4th.
Chuck, just for clarification, so when was that advertised?
Laura's going to check for that.
All right, thanks.
Does it make any sense to consider these quotes with the ones in new business that have additional sidewalk?
This is
I think
yeah.
the totals come out also in favor of R&R.
I guess I would, because of this is under old business and the other one is under new business, this is a discussion item that you have brought up before, and so your instructions from you to me were to go ahead and seek quotes for this. And
Do we have any thoughts on the proposals? Or was covered? Or the
Yeah,
other?
I don't know that yet, no.
I got a question. I just want to make sure it's advertised and when, and if there's a lengthy time for the contractors to respond to that advertisement.
okay, she's checking on that. So
I think we just approved at a meeting that we asked you to advertise it, so
okay.
I think.
I'm not sure we published it as a, seeking of quotes as per se. So we'll have to wait to see if there's clarification on that. We reached out to the area contractors that we know of that do the work, and Leisure Brothers was one of those, and R&R Construction was the other one.
Yeah, I mean, just from where it's probably not going to be the best, most efficient way to receive a quote.
Okay? Okay, so I'll ask the board to table this until we properly advertise it as such.
Yeah, that's an option.
So what does that mean specifically, just so we don't?
So we'll put it out for general public so that everybody's aware, because as Director Miro has indicated, there may be others that we're not aware of it. And so we'll properly advertise it and get it out with the stipulation that work must be completed before the beginning of the 18-19 school year.
That may be a
By that-
problem, yeah.
By that you mean in the newspaper, when you say.
Right. Mhm.
Okay.
Yep, put it on the website as well as in the newspapers.
Thanks.
Yeah, it'll be a fast turnaround.
Yeah, we have to move on that, because
Is
that's,
that going to be feasible? If we don't make a decision until August?
then we're, unless we give Superintendent Ayler the authority to go with the lowest bid.
Unfortunately, you're not able to do that. The approval of quotes.
I don't think we're gonna get this thing done this fall, and if we go that route. Maybe, you have to advertise for at least several weeks.
I think we need two times in the paper, so.
We don't meet again until the 20th of August.
Okay?
We can do another special session like we did if you want.
Sure. We would need to get it out in this week's paper as well as next week's paper, so we would be looking at possibly July 30th or August 6th.
Are we required to advertise for quotes monthly? Or is there's a dollar amount above which it's?
It's 175,000.
Okay,
They
okay.
raised
So
it.
maybe we need to be clear in the future about when we,
Yeah, you don't have to, as a board, you're not required to advertise unless it's it exceeds the amount of 175,000. Again, I just took the local people that we work with, we've done work with R&R Construction as well as Weezer Brothers, so they were my logical choices, so. But in fairness, as Director Miro has indicated, there may be others that have expressed an interest in it as well, so. Again, I'll give you the options of meeting on July 30th to approve those quotes. I'll just have a stipulation that they need to be in to the district office by July 27th. And we'll be able to make this week's paper as well as next week's.
Yeah, I can meet whenever.
Anybody have any thoughts? For everybody else?
I guess I'd like to, I'd like you to have these quotes on a standardized form, so that we can more easily read.
Sure.
Read a comparison.
Yep.
For comparison,
Yeah.
like we do on the other bids.
We can do that.
And that would also give the, the current people proposing would have an opportunity to adjust their bids also, I would assume.
That would be helpful, like, looking through these, I don't know enough about the subjects, and I kept looking through trying to find, is one offering different services somehow?
And adding this up in your head. against-
Yes, and I was not really able to mentally achieve that, but I think what you're talking about, different form would be helpful.
While we're at it, we've got the other sidewalk issue too, and if you're gonna do it, we'll do it all at once.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It's-
Is that acceptable, everybody? Do both sidewalk bids at the same time?
I think that's smart.
Would you like them broken out so that one is reflective of just the one that is adjacent to Pine Meadow Lane, and then the other one broken out as a separate entity as well? Okay.
Yes. And I think the two that were approached initially should be advised that it's being advertised.
Sure, by all means.
As far as the date goes, we,
I think the week is the 30th.
So Monday. 5:30?
that works for everybody? Okay. Anybody have a problem with 5:30 on the 30th of July?
Make a motion to that effect?
You can, sure.
I would make that motion.
Okay. Motion by Iverson. Second?
Second by Earl.
Earl, second. All those in favor of having the bids published and meeting back here on the 30th at 5:30, signify by saying aye.
Right.
Opposed? One opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Okay, moving on to item D, that's old business. Discussion regarding the old elementary high school building in the city of Westford. Director Iverson, myself, and Mr. Baylor were at a meeting this week in the city. And there's a proposal by an entity to purchase the building. However, they have not been forthcoming with all the documentation that has been required. So we have given them until the middle of August to come forward with the documentation that the committee felt was necessary to proceed with their purchase. So that's where we're at this time. The city is also interested, I believe, although we didn't get into any specifics on what their interest is or what arrangements they have. But at this point, we're just in a holding pattern, waiting to see what this proposed investor would come up with. And we'll know more in a month, I guess. Anybody have any questions about that?
Is it an investor that came to us through the city or separate from the city? You're saying?
Came to us separate from the city.
And they are also interested.
But as John clearly indicated to you this evening, there's some concerns about the ability of this organization to come up with the necessary funding. So in the event that they don't, the city is prepared to present a plan B for the school district to consider.
Anything else on that? Okay, moving on to new business. We have item A, operating referendum presentation. Ms. Doyle, financial specialist at Taylor's, you got something for us?
Yeah, I
So welcome, Barbie. Barbie is here to present to you this evening information about the operating referendum, and Tony is also present, so if you have questions that revolve around how it pertains to us specifically, we're able to answer those questions this evening. So Barbie, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I want to make sure that you do have this PowerPoint. Okay, a little bit small. I'm at the Bible Hall stage, so if anybody else wants a larger print, then we do have that available for you. This is an additional handout that we will be going over as well, so I just want everyone to have that too. Okay, so first of all, thank you for allowing me to come here. My name is Darby Doyle, and I work for Ellers, and we are your financial advisors. Prior to this position, I've been with Ellers now for about 7 months. Prior to this position, I was the executive director at Region 5, and then we assist school districts with their accounting, with their office needs. And so I got to work very closely with Tony on a few different pieces, and also with Chuck. So I feel really happy that I get to be here tonight in somewhat familiar areas. So what I have prepared for you tonight is just a quick PowerPoint to kind of describe the operating referendum piece that your district is considering going out for. Please keep in mind, though, that we are 1 year early. So the information that we're going to go over, we can actually, it's going to be applicable in FY21 because we're going 1 year early, which is allowed. So what you're voting for, or what you're going to present in the fall is actually 2 years out, if you will. So we'll just kind of keep that in mind as we're going through this information.
Allow me to add to what Barbie's sharing with you tonight, as well as those members in the audience. The reason that we're asking you as a board to authorize us to go out early is so that we can save the expense of hosting or having a special election in 2019. So there is significance here for us to incorporate this and make it a part of this fall's general election, which is scheduled for Tuesday, November 6th.
So I'm not going to bore you with all the details of every slide that we have here, but I just do want to hit a few highlights. If you look at slide number 3, it does talk about the revenue cap. And right now the revenue cap for FY19, school year 2018-19, is $1,963 per adjusted pupil unit. And we will be talking about that and what that means in just a little bit. There is information in this PowerPoint about what is a referendum, what do they look like, how are they, how does that work? And you can certainly read on that. I know that you folks know all about this though. So you currently have pieces in place. On slide number 5, current referendum provisions. Operating referendum is on referendum market value, which means that referendum property taxes are not levied. So your egg is not levied, and your cabin owners, as an example, is not levied. Those with egg, it's the only thing that they're going to pay taxes on is the house, garage, and 1 acre. So it's the RMV is the referendum market value is what we're taxing on. An operating referendum, it can qualify for state equalization aid, and you do get that. And we've got a slide telling you there's different tiers of aid and how that piece works. And so we'll go through that piece in a little bit as well. The state aid portion of the referendum is dependent on the district's referendum market value per resident pupil. So that's how that's determined. Okay, we're going to talk about the pupil changes impacted allowances. That's slide number 6. The MDE and the state, the legislature went through some changes of how they actually account for kids, and we'll talk about that conversion in a little bit. On slide 7, the legislative changes, there's 3 tiers for aid. And so your district right now, there is an equalized tier 1, and that's your first $300. Most districts are going to have this. Your district at 61% aid in that area. So the state's picking up the first 61% of that. Then in the second tier, that's from your $300 per pupil to $760 per pupil. And for Rushford-Peterson, you have approximately 34% there. And again, that's state aid, so the state is picking up that amount. The third tier, however, very few schools qualify for that, and yours does not as well. So that is not unusual at all not to qualify for that third tier of aid. On slide 8, other legislative changes, the districts can convert up to $300 per pupil of voter-approved referendum authority to board-approved authority, or basically what you're doing is you're creating $300 per pupil, and that is a strong recommendation for your district. You currently do not have that, and so I would strongly encourage you to move to that $300 per pupil that can be board approved. Then when you go up to the voter, it's $300 less that you're asking for. That board approval has an authorization for up to 5 years. So every 5 years, as it stands right now, every 5 years you have to go out. The board then can reauthorize that $300 per pupil. So, just a little side note, in this last legislative session that we had, they were talking about taking that 424 of local operating revenue that you have and combining it with the 300 and just making it a clean 724 for all the districts. But unfortunately, that's one of the pieces that didn't make it through. So we're hopeful for next year that it will. It's going to prove it now. So. Okay, the next slide, slide 9 there. All districts qualify for that $424 of the local optional revenue, and so your district has that, and you're making use of that. And what we're stating there is you can stack the local operating revenue with that $300 board approved, so that every district does qualify and can get, without board approval, $724 per pupil unit. Okay. On page 10, here's where we talk about the conversion of how we used to count kids and now how we count kids and how much we can get for each kid and all that sort of good stuff. So, back in 2009, the voters approved $940.19 per student. That estimated fiscal year 2019-20 allowance is $440.64. Well, that doesn't make sense. How do you get there, right? Okay, so you originally had that 940.19 approved. Then we have inflation factors built into the referendum amounts, and the legislature changed how we count a student. It's not always a one-to-one. Some students have a different weight, as an example. Because of those different changes, after the inflation and the 2013 pupil unit legislative change, that 940.19 became $1,164.64. That was a revenue neutral, break even. The district still has the 424 of the local optional revenue, district approved board authority of 300. So then we come to a net adjusted referendum allowance of $440.64. So $440.64 is what's needed from the voters to not increase, just to stay the same, to stay where you currently are. I think it's important to note on slide number 11 that more than 99% of districts receive referendum revenue. So everybody has to go out for referendum revenue. You can't make it on what the state is giving alone. So you do have to go to the voters and ask. I'm going to skip the next few. There's some trends. It shows you how, local optional revenue is being tracked, and it gives you trends of referendums and where everybody's sitting. On slide 14, something of interest to you may be, for fiscal year 18-19, the average referendum plus the local optional is $1,202 per pupil. So that's the state average at this point. So, why do we need these referendums? I alluded to it a little bit earlier, slide 16, because the state hasn't kept up with inflation. So, if the allowance increased with inflation each year, we would be, the general formula allowance would be $618 higher per student, and we're not. So because of that shortfall, we have to go out for referendums. Page 17 just kind of shows you a chart of where the inflation factor is versus what we're actually getting funded per student. And there are several costs that go along with this, not just the normal operating, but a lot of the special eds and those different pieces are part of the reason why. If you would then turn your attention to slide number 21. These are your district-specific pieces. The election date then that we're talking about, we are allowed to only do operating referendums in November. And so that date is, as Chuck had mentioned, is November 6th. Your existing authority right now is $740.64 per pupil, and that does include the inflationary adjustments, and it will expire then after FY20. So here are your options. One option is then to adopt the 300 board-approved authority, renew the existing referendum. You can also increase the authority, and we ran some assumptions for 100, 200, and 300 per pupil. You can choose if you want this to be subject to inflation or not. And then you can choose the years. Most districts are going to go for the full 10, and that's what's allowed is a maximum of 10 years. What's important on this page is that you have to make your decision by August 24th, and I'll go through some timeline information with you, but that is something to keep in mind. On the next page then, slide 22, we talk about the tax impact. So how is it going to affect our taxpayers? So what you're seeing here then is for taxes payable in 2020, okay? So what we did was we set up 3 different options, one at $100, one at $200, one at $300. And again, this is an increase. So we took it down to net neutral, and then we tacked on an additional $100. That's going to be roughly $71,000 for you. You can see that a $150,000 home, as an example, will see an increase of $41 annually. If you look at the middle column, that's $200 per pupil. That will get you an additional $142,000. And again, that $150,000 home would be $84 annually, about $7 a month. And then option C is 300, getting you approximately $214,000, and that $150,000 home is at $126,000. Okay, so these are the tax impacts that we prepare for districts to help the community understand how much their taxes may be going up if they choose to go for it. The rest of the packet kind of talks about some things that we think are really important for folks to realize is that there are state property tax refunds and deferrals. So a lot of people do qualify to get a tax refund from their homestead property. And so I think it's important that folks are aware of that that's a piece that kind of can come into play. The refund is on a sliding scale. It's based on your total property taxes and the income. The maximum refund is $2,710 and $2,100, and so a lot of people do qualify for that. They just don't take advantage of it. So that's something that's important for your community to know as well when you're thinking about an operating referendum. The last slide just talks about the senior citizen property tax deferral. Just to keep in mind, it's a deferral, so you still have to pay it, but it does give them a little extra time. Okay, so that is kind of in a highlight nutshell what it is that we're talking about as far as impacts. The other handout I believe that you have then is what was in the slide, only it's just showing the tax impact for different property types. And what we have here then is because it's a referendum market value, everything's going to be the same. So that's what we've provided for you here. We've got different housing values, and the information is laid out just as it was in that slide. So I don't know if there's any questions on that. The only other piece that I wanted to go over with you is the one that I just handed out, the timeline. I think it's important for us to understand our timelines when we're talking about these referendums and voting. So because you're going out in an even year, if you will, there are quite as many hoops that you would have to jump through, and as Chuck mentioned as well, the costs are a little bit less too. So The important dates to remember, the first date that's really important is number 1, August 24th. It will need to be decided what it is that you're, if you're wanting a special election, and what it is that you're going to be trying to vote on. So we'll need a resolution prior to that. Okay. You do need to coordinate the printing of the ballots for the special election, and that needs to be done no later than September 21st. The county should take care of this one because of the even year, so we should be good there. Okay, then item number 4, this is the only duck one with an operating referendum. This is the one where you need to get all of the taxpayers in the district and mail the required referendum notice to each taxpayer at least 15 days, but no more than 30. So somewhere in between October 7th and October 22nd, you have to get that mailing out. What a lot of districts will do then, they may have a brochure or something like that talking about the operating referendum, and then there's tax impacts. The tax impact table can go out with it, and that kind of informs them of what they know. So your attorney, whomever you're going to choose for an attorney, can assist you with getting all that put together and getting that language. So, and then you just need to submit the copies of the required referendum notice to the commissioner, post the special election, publish the information in the paper 2 consecutive weeks, with the last publication being at least 1 week prior. So it just lists out all those dates for you, and then you have your vote on November 6th. So I don't know if there's any questions, if there's any additional information that you need. I know that you also have in your packet a resolution regarding that $300 to do a board authorization of that $300 then. And that way, again, you're asking your taxpayers for a lesser dollar value. You're asking them for $440 as an example versus $740.
And that dollar amount would change provided if the board chooses to increase that amount.
Correct.
For example,
Absolutely.
if you choose one of the 3 options that Barbie presented to you, instead of the $440, then it could be $540, or if you go $200, it could be $640, and if you go $300, it could be $740. So you need to keep that in mind. And the reason that we asked Barbie and Ehlers to do that, if you recall on the budget that we had you approve this year, we as a district have, and you as a board, have been very instrumental in making a commitment to educating our younger students, our younger population, and that comes as a cost to us as a district. We do not receive any state funding for those programs, so the rationale behind that is for you as a board to say, as part of that, is that we have to address deficit spending in that area. And one of the ways that you can do that, and one of the most equitable ways to do that, is to give our consideration to increasing the referendum. So that is the rationale for Ehlers putting together those options for you to consider this evening.
And again, you are going a year early, so that's actually advantageous on in 2 areas actually, because you get to piggyback onto the county. The other is if it fails, you can go out again next year. You still have your same funding for the next 2 fiscal years, so it's very advantageous to go out now.
Thank you. Any questions for Barbara? She's going to stay, and as you get into these other agenda items, she will lend her expertise if you are in need of seeking her opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I might have a few points here. First one would be, it'd be kind of nice to know what some of the neighboring districts have for operating referendums to kind of compare and contrast and what some of the other folks are doing, that are near and dear to us, kind of like we did with the track club.
Sure.
So that'd be one. And then 2, it'd kind of be nice to break down what the impact will be to our ag taxpayers in the district. And she mentioned a couple examples of just kind of the residential, but I'd like to kind of flesh out what the impact to the ag folks would be. And the last part would be, I think in the new school meeting, it was briefed that we were to
So the first question with the, looking at where the neighbors are, we can provide you charts on that. And there's a lot of different comparative charts that we can make in graphs to show where your neighboring districts are, or those in your conference, or whatever, whomever you want to be compared to. We can certainly provide some information for that. The second question, ag is not affected differently at all. Farmers are only taxed on their house, garage, and 1 acre. Their land is not included in that calculation.
Okay, that's helpful.
Okay, and then I don't know what the third question was.
It's in reference to the new school and our operational costs. for the
Gotcha.
new school.
Okay.
So that would probably be you, Chuck. I think that's what was briefed at the new school meeting.
Anybody else have any questions?
For these schools, we also have to look at what kind of early childhood program they have. They could be offering a lot less than us.
Yeah, good, Mike.
I lost you for a little bit. Was the third topic addressed the $270,000 savings?
No, I don't have those numbers for you this evening, so the intent tonight is to give you a chance to process the information, and at the August meeting, you would need to make your intention known, along with the amount that you wish to go out for.
All right, thanks.
The one that you would need to vote on, though, this evening is approve the resolution authorizing the $300, the board authorized amount of $300. So that one would require you to have a roll call vote this evening on that one.
And it doesn't impact the taxpayer, correct?
Correct.
That one does not impact the taxpayer.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Wish to make a motion, or?
I'll make a motion to approve that 300.
Iverson, the second.
Motion by Hall, second by Iverson. Any further discussion? We need a roll call vote, I believe. The proposal is the $300 resolution that is reimbursed by the state, is my understanding.
Valerie Howe,
Yes.
Joyce Iverson,
Yes.
John Linder,
Yes.
Dee Miro,
Yes.
John Pettit,
Yes.
Bonnie Crimson.
Yes.
Motion carries. 6-0. Okay.
Barbie, on behalf of the board, thank you for being here and bringing us up to speed on all the ins and outs of an operating referendum. So appreciate you making the long drive down this evening.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
No one has any additional questions? I'm sure that she's anxious to get back on the road. So thank you again, Barbie. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Just going back to item A1, approve the intention of the board. Is that consensus? We'll do that in August? Or was that?
I guess I would, since Barbie is still here, maybe she could, the board, what would be your suggestion this evening, Barbie, to the board as far as their intention to have this placed as an operating referendum?
I think that's exactly how I would state it, just have an approval of the intention to have an operating referendum, a ballot election on November 6th. I think that's a nice way to state it.
Then in August, we would have a formal resolution to approve placement of
Yeah,
the dollar amount on the ballot.
correct, yeah. And
Okay.
so we're going to need to know, who that is. We're going to need to know the attorney as well, so that we can get that language written on for that resolution.
This would just require a motion.
Well, you'd also need to determine the.
Yes, yes.
You'd also need to determine the amount, is the
Correct.
With the intent of the amount. So two things there. One is you're indicating your intention to go off as the operating referendum vote on November 6th, and then you need to determine the dollar amount. With the approval that you just gave this evening of the $300, that amount then becomes $424 and some odd cents. And then, as I indicated to you, based on the budget projections that we have for the costs that we incur with keeping our class sizes low in our early childhood program, as well as our kindergarten and first grade classrooms, I indicated to you as a district that we need to give consideration to balancing that budget, and one of the expenses that we incur is with the board intention to keep those numbers low. It's advantageous then for you to give consideration to increasing the amount that you're asking for in that referendum.
And Chuck, I need to clarify, you don't have to choose the dollar amount tonight, you can choose the dollar amount on the 20th, and then we just have to get it in by the 24th.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
so if you need to take time on the dollar piece, that does have to be decided on the 20th.
So tonight is just the intention to have it placed on the ballot.
Correct.
Thank you. Sorry about
Correct.
that.
I would make that motion.
Okay. Motion by Anderson. Second?
Second by Hall.
Everybody understands that, and we've got, we don't need to specify a dollar amount, we will be able to get some more information at the August meeting. Okay, all those in favor of the approve the intention of the board to place an operating referendum on the general election ballot to be held on Tuesday, November 6th, 2018, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Question regarding the information we have for August. Would you be able to give us some projections of those costs for, is it preschool, kindergarten, and first grade?
Mhm.
Or that additional costs?
Mhm.
Are we looking at three sections of each of those?
We are not this coming year, no. We are in our early childhood program. Lisa has been very proactive in addressing the early childhood students and making sure that we're providing a program that is age appropriate and age developmentally appropriate. So again, we do not receive any state funding for that program or very limited funding for that program. So it would be advantageous for the district to take a look at that and to give consideration to making sure that that's a fiscally supported and fiscally sound means for the district to support the program.
Based on the numbers we're looking at, 3 teachers?
Yes, and our numbers average anywhere from 65 to 72 students on average, so we've built the program. Again, credit to Lisa for that, making that available to our parents and to our families. So they've come to rely on that, and so again, I just advocate to the board to say, I commend you for the support that you're showing those early learners and helping those families that have children of that age group and providing them a program that they can trust and rely on to help their child develop developmentally.
I have a couple questions. On this referendum, how do we come up with the pupil numbers? Is that every kid that's enrolled in our school, or does it
So
take?
there's actually a couple different calculation, student counts, if you will. We do need to take those students that are served and also the resident students. So students served takes into account your open enrollment, if you will, the options in and out. And then we also have to take into account your resident, who's actually in the district boundary.
So then, on this particular type of referendum, our open enrolled students would also be unfunded, just like our early childhood. Their parents aren't going to be included in a kick-in for the referendum or anything like that. It would just be, I would be paying part of my taxes for that open roll, because that number, that student's number is in this calculation.
A portion of it is, yes, yes. The adjusted pupil units and your resident units, so yes, both of those counts are in.
And there's no way for us to recoup that from outside the district or have them bring that with them as such. It's just the way it is.
But you are getting general ed dollars for those kids.
For those students that we normally wouldn't get.
Correct.
Yeah, we're already admitting that the general ed dollars don't cover our costs, so we're bringing them in at an expense to our district, not as a net gain. We're not gaining anything except more expense.
Yeah, you're actually increasing your overall general ed revenue.
Revenues.
You're increasing it by any of those students that you're serving. You are absolutely correct in that those that need to be aware of the operating referendum that will be solicited and information mailed to, yes, those are district residents, district taxpayers, absolutely.
Okay. Anything else? Moving on to the new business item 8B, approve the 2018-20 custodial contract with Minnesota School Employees Association. And that's page 62, some information on that.
Yes, I met with the custodians and have reached a tentative agreement pending board approval. The amount is there. Very pleased to present to you the percentage increase there is what I would consider very sound and yet at the same time being fair to our custodians. So
How many custodians does this have?
we have 5 full-time and 2 part-time.
Carl is retiring.
Carl will be retired.
Be replaced.
Yes. We'll need to advertise for that position.
Any comments on the custodial contract?
I would like to comment that I'm again upset that this contract did not come before the negotiations committee like the other contracts didn't come except for the teachers and the superintendent. I think that committee should be brought up to speed on all of these negotiations, and since this runs through 2020, I will certainly make a point of it that the next superintendent keeps track of the committees, and I will have to be assured that we will be part of the negotiations as a committee and as other committees need to be also.
With all due respect, Director Pettit, I will address that issue because that's an ongoing thing with you. I understand that and appreciate it, but also you hire me to do a job, and that's part of my job, is to bring those recommendations, to have those conversations with those employees, and it is a rarity that full board or negotiation team sits down to negotiate those contracts. I understand your concern on it, but at the same time, I also am respectful of the fact that you continue to hammer me on not doing my job, and that's part of my job. So I'm doing my job. I'm doing what you asked me to do. So on that note, with all due respect, I have done what I consider an excellent job of negotiating with all of these entities, and am proud to bring to you this offer this evening.
And I did not consider it part of your job, and I have not asked you. What I've asked you to be is a resource person for the entire district.
Well,
The entire district. That's what you should be.
We're going to agree to disagree on that.
Contracts or anything. So that's what you should be.
Is there a motion on the custodial contract?
Paul makes a motion to approve it.
Motion by Howell, and a second.
Principal second.
Second by Quincy. Any other comments? All those in favor of approving the custodial contract as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No? Motion carries. Moving on to item 8C, approve the resolution for new membership with the Minnesota State High School League.
It's an annual membership, and you're required as a board to do a roll call vote to secure our membership in the Minnesota State High School League.
Anybody have any questions on that resolution?
Excellent video was sent.
It'll be one that's shared with all of our families at our annual eligibility meeting this year too.
I agree.
Anybody wish to make a motion?
Principal will make that motion.
Motion by Quincy. And a second.
Iverson, a second.
Second by Anderson. All those in, we have a roll call vote. All those in favor will say yes.
Valerie Howe,
Yes?
Joyce Iverson,
Yes.
John Linder,
Yes.
Dean Miro,
Yes.
John Pettit,
Yes.
Bonnie Princeton.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Moving on to item 8D, appoint interim board member and approve the resolution filling school board vacancy by appointment. I believe we had 4 applicants, is that correct?
And those resumes and their interests were shared with you as a board, so happy to see that response, and so would ask you to go ahead and make your recommendations this evening. The process, John, we discussed that and how we would do that, and so you would seek nominations from the board members here, and then once the nominations cease, then we would narrow it down to two individuals, 2 out of the 4, and then to have a final vote on the final 2 candidates.
My understanding is there's discussion regarding the candidates, then there are nominations. You cannot nominate more than 1 person, and there's no second required. That's clear to everybody? So I guess at this point, we'll take any discussion regarding any of the candidates anybody wishes to address.
And maybe it'd be advantageous for you to state who the candidates are this time.
Yes, I believe
Jeff Michael is one.
Jeff Mike, Steve Hyam, Tony Hayden, and
Kathy.
Kathy.
And out of the 4 candidates, Kathy Ingram served on the board for 1 term. So her actual serving dates, I do not have. Do you have those available? So of the 4, we have 1 that has previous board experience.
Yes, I would like to nominate Kathy.
Any other discussion or nominations?
I agree that I think to bring somebody on board quickly, the experience that Kathy Ingram has would be helpful to come on for this short period of time and be able to jump right in. I also was glad to see that there were 4 people interested because it's hard to get people to serve on boards. I don't know why, I mean, don't we make it look fun? But, so I'm glad because there'll be some vacancies in the fall, and I hope, those same people will be interested and maybe even more to run in the fall.
I would like to nominate Tony Hyman with his experience serving on multiple boards, his business and background.
Okay. Any other nominations or discussion?
Is this going to be a secret ballot, a roll call,
There'll be a roll call.
with more than 1 person? person running? Okay.
Uh,
Will you state the name when you're?
Yeah, state the name,
called, or-
state the name when you're called. We have 2 nominations at this point.
Was that Matt's? We could have-
No, you can nominate up to 4.
You can nominate all 4, and then you just begin the vote process. Those in favor of candidate number 1, and then say yes or no.
I thought you said something about narrowing it down to 2.
Yeah, and then once you have the 2,
Oh,
If you don't get a majority in the first vote, then you nominate the least votes. Any other nominations?
Well, I'll nominate Steve Heine.
Okay. Anything else? Any discussion? One more time, any more nominations? Okay, at this point, we'll proceed to vote. We have 3 candidates, Ingram, Hyden, and Hines. So state your preference, roll call vote.
Valerie Howe,
Ingram.
Joyce Iverson,
Ingram.
John Linder,
Ingram.
Dean Merrow,
Hyden.
John Pettit,
Heine.
Bonnie Princeton.
Ingram.
It's 4-2. Ingram will be the interim board member until the November election, which will be 4 openings at that point, I believe. Okay, now, next moving on to item 8E, approve the handbooks for the 18-19 school year.
Do we have to pass a resolution as well?
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
And you,
we do. Thank you for catching that.
All right, that would be we need a motion for that, I guess.
I would make that motion.
Motion by Iverson, for a second,
There's no second.
by Princeton. Any discussion? There's a motion to appoint interim Kathy Ingram as an interim board member and approve the resolution filling the vacancy. I guess we're going to I guess we do a roll call. Right?
Valerie Howe,
Yes.
Joyce Iverson,
Yes.
John Linder,
Yes.
Dean Merrow,
Yes.
John Pettit,
Yes.
Bonnie Princeton.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, now move on to item 8E, approve the handbooks for the 18-19 school year.
I asked Mrs. Olsted and Shepherd and Mr. Tim to go ahead and make whatever improvements they needed to do to the student handbooks. They proceeded to do that. Those were shared with you in your report this month, and so we're asking for your approval of those handbooks for the 2018-19 school year.
Okay, anybody have any questions? We had a chance to look at it. Any significant changes?
The 2 main ones we put in the update here were the tardiness of just kind of changing, if you have 3 unexcused tardies, that equals 1 unexcused absence. We just have some families that they don't quite meet that absence time limit, and it's just continual unexcused tardies. And to kind of help get our kids in working with the Fillmore County for truancy court, they need unexcused absences to get there. So it's just kind of a way to clean that up a little bit. And then based on some of the discussion in our, I believe it was the April meeting, it was March or April meeting with the bus drivers and some bus concerns with the cameras and stuff, working with Bernard Bus to come up with a protocol for referral. Should a bus driver give a written referral, we now have a first through a fourth plan that's consistent across the district, and parents will all know, students will know, bus drivers, bus company know, administrators know. So we just wanted to get that in writing. So those are the 2 biggies.
We will meet through, before school starts with the drivers and that, to go through this and make it so we all know we're on the same page. But it is in our K-12 handbook.
Okay, any other questions on the handbook? Look for a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Hal,
Princeton, second.
second by Princeton. All those in favor of approving the handbook for the upcoming school year, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item F, approve the resolution approving the annual 10-year updated long-term facilities maintenance plan. It's located on page 67.
Each year, we're required by the state to project what our, what we anticipate for expenses, and for those of you that on previous boards, this used to be our health and safety, and now they require us to put a 10-year plan together. And so Tony and I worked on coming up with what we'd anticipate here for some of the long-term facilities maintenances over the 10-year. And of course, the nice thing of that is that we have the flexibility as you project that out to 10 years to adjust that on an annual basis. So
Is this going down with the new facility or?
it is, yes.
So do we have more expenses this year because of finishing up with?
There are some things that, yes, that would qualify. Sort of an example is the proposal to move forward with making some corrections and additions to the sidewalk areas, and based on traffic flow that we've observed from our students and our faculty and employees, it's advantageous to make some adjustments to those areas. And yes, that would qualify under the long-term facilities maintenance.
Any questions on the long-term maintenance plan? Not, I'll look for a motion to approve.
So, Anderson?
Second?
Princeton, second.
And that requires a roll call vote on the, signify by saying yes on the approval of the maintenance plan.
Valerie Howe,
Yes.
Joyce Iverson,
Yes.
John Linder,
Yes.
Dean Miro,
Yes.
John Pettit,
Yes.
Bonnie Princeton.
Yes.
Carries 6-0.
And clarification, did we just vote on the resolution? Or did we vote on the plan?
The resolution is the plan, I guess.
Okay, because thank you.
Okay, moving on to item G, 8G, approve the meal prices for the 18-19 school year. Recommended K-5 lunch, 10 cents, 6-12 lunch, 15 cents, and milk, 5 cents.
We did a comparison with area schools, and we have not raised our prices in 2 years, so in order to make adjustments to that in anticipation of perhaps some additional cost, we are bringing a recommendation. When I say we, Joyce, myself, went over the area cost, and with Laura's input as well, we came to the conclusion that it would be advantageous for us to advocate for these increases.
Anybody have any questions or comments on the recommended prices for lunch and milk?
Still reasonable by comparison?
They are, yes, very much so.
For a motion to approve?
Anderson,
Motion by Iverson, for a second.
Princeton, second.
Second by Princeton. All those in favor of approval of the meal prices for the 18-19 school year, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item H, review the gasoline, bread, and milk bids for the 18-19 school year and choose the vendor. We had
It's located on page 70 of your board packet or on your board book information. And again, we are limited in the number of bids that we get in. Gasoline, you had 2, and bread and milk, basically you only have 1 to consider, so from each of the vendors. So again, with gasoline, it's always quite competitive, and comes down to the half cents almost as to who has the low bid price for the upcoming school year. Very tight.
I guess we can combine them or do them separately, I guess. So why don't we do the gas first? We have 2 bids.
Do you need a motion?
We need a motion, yeah.
I make a motion to go with Pam's.
Motion to go with Dan, on the gasoline.
Second by Merrill.
Ramiro, any discussion? All those in favor of Pam's Corner Convenience for the gasoline provider, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Moving on to the milk bid. We have, that's separate from the bread, isn't it? It's just-
It is,
it's
yes.
just one vendor for the milk.
Camps is the only one, yes.
Okay. And the bread, we have 2 bids, or is that the same company? Just 2, I guess.
Yeah, close again.
You want to combine motion for this?
Yeah, why don't we combine these 2 with a motion?
I would move to approve Kemp's and Handle.
Let's see.
Second by Howard.
Motion by Everson, second by Hall. The motion is to approve Kemp's for the milk and Panagold for the bread. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. That motion carried. Item I, we have the proposed purchase of a 10-passenger van from Sugarloaf Ford in the amount of $31,922.49.
This is in your packet, and Laura put together an inventory of all the school vehicles that we own, so that you were up to speed with all of those as well. The quote here offered by Sugarloaf Ford is a state bid price, so you would get that no matter what vendor you went with, and so we're fortunate that we're able to work with them. They've been very supportive of our needs as far as our transportation needs. And in addition to that, we have one of our 10-passenger vans, number 3, that is no longer, that we're no longer able to utilize as a school vehicle. It has exceeded the 12-year limitation. So just so everybody's on speed with, on board with that, is that any vehicle that we own, once they've reached the 12 years of service, they're no longer, we can no longer use them to transport students.
That's why we have a few older ones, like a Chevy Astro, that doesn't.
That does not transport students, yeah. So when you see those older ones, that one is used by our custodians, and we have 1 or 2 others that are used just for staff purposes.
Any comments on the proposed vehicle purchase? Are we ready?
We are not. We're going to be selling that one. Van number 3 will be selling outright.
Okay, look for a motion on the van.
Were there any other quotes?
This is a state quote, so this, yeah, it's a standard quote.
I'll make a motion for
Motion by Iverson, second.
Second by Howard.
Any further discussion?
Yes, I do have some further discussion on this.
Okay.
This van is about 40,000, it looks like to me. We have quite a fleet here. I think I know what all we're used for, but I'm not sure. I think there's probably some to transport some athletes once in a while, and some for the custodians, but not exactly. Are the rest of these vans all used to transport students from outside our district into our district?
Well, not necessarily, Director Pettit. Some of those vans that you see there were required to transport students to Caledonia for those of these special education students that are in need of specialized programs. So we utilize our vans in that way. We have other students that attend area schooling that we cannot provide. So not all those vans are used to transport open enrolled students into our district.
What will the use of this new one be? It's a pretty good looking big rig.
Yeah, and that one will be used to assist us with the number of students that we currently have in the Wiskoy Valley area, so most of those students are open enrolled students.
Okay, and that brings up my point. This is another expense that we're putting out to bring people into this district and not being reimbursed, so it's being paid out of funds that we could be using for our own because we just don't get enough money from the state or the taxpayers currently to pay the education of each student in our district. So I don't see that as a good thing for our district to be subsidizing open enrollment.
Well, again, Director Pettit, we're going to agree to disagree on that. Again, those students that are coming into our district do add to the general fund dollars that we're able to generate, and so they are significant to us. And so I think it's advantageous and we're fortunate that we have those students that choose to attend Rushmore Peterson schools. And so I think it is well within the district's best interest to continue moving forward with those efforts to provide transportation.
The open enrollment is a state, I mean, that is, this open enrollment goes in every direction, so that is something that we're not going to get around in one way or another. And I think that's a positive thing for our district that people want to come here, so that's
I think too, if it were true what you were saying, that the open enrolled students coming in is a big drag on our finances, then why are, across the state, why are so many schools upset when their students open enroll elsewhere? And why are there, I mean, I even heard of schools recruiting other students to come in, so, you know, it can't really be a negative thing.
okay. So we have a motion pending on the purchase of the vehicle. Is any further discussion? All those in favor of the purchase of the van, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Motion carries. Moving on, item 8J, the library media specialist discussion. Mr. Taylor, can you enlighten us on?
Yes, I certainly can, and I'll be happy to give that to you. It's in page 72 of your packet or on your board book. Beth Nelson is currently serving as one of our library media associates. Right now for the district, I hold the license for the library media specialist. And the reason that we're bringing this to the board this evening is for your consideration. Beth would like an indication from you if she were to pursue licensure, which would mean getting her library media specialist degree. Would the board consider that then to be, and place it back into the regular negotiated contract for staff members or teachers? And so she wants an indication from the board of your support of that, and indicated to you what that job description would look like, and her ability right now. She is not able to step outside the realm of her associate position by teaching certain skills and things in behalf of, because of restrictions there by the union. So it does afford the district the flexibility to enlist her willingness to secure that degree, as well as then bring that knowledge and be able to share that with the students and the staff.
So I have a question. So you have a license right now, we have to have somebody on staff with the license, is that correct?
You do not. You're not required by, it's not a state mandated position, very similar to the school nurse position. Because of your size, you're not required to necessarily have someone to fill that position. Many districts continue to do what we've done. Again, like I said, I've worked closely with Beth over the years here in making sure that, things that she needs my input on and that I'm willing to lend to as well, so.
May I ask what is added here to the duties she currently fulfills?
Well, the big component is the teaching aspect. She's not able to do that. And then, of course, her ability to provide some leadership there. And a lot of the skills that she does under management are things that she's currently doing right now.
So it would require her to go back to school.
It would, and with the new tiered license system, she estimates that it would take her 3 years to secure the licensure for that position. But again, the whole emphasis for her putting this request in front of the board this evening is to get an indication from you if she were to pursue that licensure, if the district would be inclined to make that a paid position under the master agreement.
Okay, and would it be 3 years before she would qualify for that master's lane?
It would, yes.
And are there steps in between?
There are, with the tiered license, yes, there's steps in between, yeah.
Chuck, just for my clarification, is the board done something similar to this in the past?
To my knowledge, this is one of the few positions in which you would be required to do something, to give an indication, that's what you're asking, to give an employee an indication that you're willing to support that down the road. Again, Beth is indicating obviously it'd be an expense to her, and so she's looking at avenues to make sure that she's able to be guaranteed more or less the district's support of her efforts to pursue that additional schooling, as well as to make, again, the position part, to include the position into the master agreement.
Yeah, the only reason I bring it up is this precedence may be used by others in the future, so that's why I bring it up.
Sure, understandable. Yeah, and
On that.
again, Beth's whole concern here is just to, and her hope is that you would be able to provide her an indication, one way or the other.
I think, as I'm looking at it, there's two issues. It would be a new position, so we'd be indicating, yes, we'll have this new position. But then I'm a little uncomfortable if we're implying that, yes, and you can have it. Because if that just seems, I'm not comfortable, I guess, at all. And
Sure.
it seems like if we are going to create this new position, that would require a little more thought than just giving an indication at a board meeting. And I know Mrs. Nelson, and I think she does a wonderful job, so it's nothing to do with her, just that in general, I think what Dean said makes sense, that this could set a precedent that we're promising something 3 years down the road, and who knows where the situation will be then, so.
Correct.
It's
Understood.
kind of uncomfortable, like, for me anyway. But I also, I can see what she's,
So what is it you're asking us to do?
Just give an indication so that I can report back to Mrs. Nelson. I'm sensing from you that at this time the board is not comfortable in pursuing and making this a part of the teaching staff requirement and adding it back into the master agreement.
Well, once it were created as a position, wouldn't we be required to advertise it?
More than likely, yes, you would
According
be.
to
Yes.
hiring practice?
Yes. Mhm.
I had thought before tonight, before I asked you, I thought we had to have somebody
be an accurate statement.
I'd still encourage her to pursue it, I think it'd be good for
Well,
her.
it's something she wants to do, of
Yeah,
course. Yeah.
and open up options for her. Okay, anything else on that?
So let me be clear, the indication from the board is that you would encourage her to pursue the licensure or the degree, but this time you're not willing to make that as a component of the master agreement or to place it back into the master agreement. Is that a fair assessment?
I think so.
Okay.
Anybody disagree with that? Okay. All right, we've discussed K, sidewalk issue. Move on to 8L, reports. The other report.
In the interest of time, I'm going to forego my report. It's rather short and to the point. But again, just very appreciative of the support that we've generated over the years here for those members that have been involved with the track team. And as Mr. Lynn indicated to you this evening, we had 4 students attending. We did host the Cavaliers. It's a drum and bugle corps here, special overnight stay. I don't know if you can call it overnight because they came in at 6 o'clock in the morning. By 6:30, they were all sleeping because they had to get back up at 11. So, but it went very well, and my thanks and appreciations to Lisa Lawson for making the arrangements and making sure that everything else is up to speed. So, on that note, we're looking forward to the Rushford Days, and we're supporting that event through a number of activities held there at the school, as we do each year. So, and the other items there are self-explanatory. So, we will take a moment, though, to extend our congratulations to the Rushford Legion and their efforts to commemorate Joe Johnson, who is a veteran who was killed in World War II at Pearl Harbor. Very pleased and impressed with the response from our community and all the efforts to welcome this individual, this veteran, back home to his home territory. So again, my thanks and appreciation to all our community for the proper internment and burial of Joe Johnson.
Any questions for Mr. Baylor regarding his report?
Lisa had to step out for a minute, and so we'll forego her report and move on to Mrs. Olsted Shepherd, and she can give you her report.
Mine was just the handbook.
Okay.
This month.
Mr. Tim, same? And so Mr. Bibendorf, you're up.
I'll go real quick. I know Lisa had to go to attend to some duties at the Queen pageant tonight. But as you saw, I'll just point out for her thing, that in August, she's gonna give you the total numbers for the summer. So that was kind of just that. As of right now, they've got 67 for preschool so far this coming fall, so. But she'll give you the whole breakdown of all the summer participation in the August meeting. On my report, just asking, or just bringing this up to your awareness, Three Rivers Conference is not recommending any kind of changes to the prices for home events. So $4 for students, $6 for adults, and my recommendation is, of course, we keep that the same, so there's no changes there. Also, we offer a student pass, an adult pass, and a family pass. When we started, we were, I think, only the 4th school in our conference, 3rd or 4th school to offer that family pass. We have a number of families taking advantage of that. It's a great way for the whole family to come and see events all year round. So I want to thank the board of the past for approving that, but I'm not recommending any changes for any of our pricing for this year. Not any action required on your part unless I guess you want to change those. And then the other thing on my report is the parent-student eligibility night. I had put down in my report a tentative date of August 2nd. We are going to back it up one more week to go August 9th. I've communicated with our cross-country football and volleyball coaches. They're all going to be participating in that, as well as Winona Health and our athletic training services. So that's all going to be coming up August 9th. We'll get that out to all the families. And, that'll be an evening here in the auditorium. Otherwise, the starting dates, August is almost here, and you can see that there's a lot of stuff coming up. But eligibility will be August 9th.
Good. Any questions for Mr. Bearder? Thank you. At this point, we will be going to closed session. I would suggest a 5-minute break if anyone opposed. We'll reconvene here in 5 minutes.
Some remembers. So we should.
We'll just, either that or they can send a summary of the special that was discussed.
Okay, no, I want